Good morning. So, I get most of my news online. I don't watch mainstream media, but apparently FAA ordered emergency engine inspections after deadly Southwest accident. And it's starting to look more and more like perhaps this engine has never failed. I looked at the 2016. They said this is the second time an engine's failed on Southwest with this particular engine, and the first time was in 2016. But after looking at that, it looks like perhaps this engine has ever failed.
Terror at 30,000 feet.
Yeah, our own aviation expert, who you're going to hear from shortly, is stressing that this was no ordinary emergency and could easily have resulted in somebody getting killed. As you can see from the pictures, part of an engine on this Southwest flight blew apart, and shrapnel may have penetrated the cabin itself.
Those images are disturbing. That cabin was filled with families with young children heading from New Orleans to Orlando. There was fear and confusion as the plane made an emergency landing. And ABC's Adrian Bankert is at Reagan National Airport for us this morning in Washington, D.C. with the stories of the passengers and the audio from inside that cockpit. Hi, Adrian.
Hello to you and good morning. Yes, one passenger describing her young children screaming and crying, an explosion, smoke, and the plane violently shaking. This morning, stunning new images of an in-air emergency.
It sounded like an 18-wheeler tire blowing, and you sort of smelling smoke.
The Southwest flight from New Orleans to Orlando suffering a catastrophic engine failure mid-air.
Engine failure, lost number one engine, we're descending.
Out of the 737's left windows, the 99 passengers on board.
Now, 99 is a math cipher for 666. So this particular engine failure is coded 666.
A clear view of the mangled engine housing as oxygen masks drop from the ceiling.
I looked out the window, I could see metal pieces flapping in the wind.
Children were screaming and crying.
In the cockpit, breathing heavily through their own oxygen masks, the pilots run through an emergency checklist.
Disengaged, affected engine confirmed, we're down to the line.
This was an explosive event with this engine, and it put hot metal into the cabin, therefore losing the cabin pressurization. The mask dropped down, and people are having to get on oxygen masks.
The malfunction forcing the plane to divert to Pensacola, dropping over 20,000 feet in just 8 minutes.
So there's this still photograph of the engine in flight, which may or may not be authentic. So this could easily have been photoshopped.
Our ears started popping pretty bad since we were going down pretty fast.
So they're in an emergency descent. They're trying to take care of a sick engine and do this all the while making sure that the passengers are okay.
The Boeing 737 landing safely in Pensacola only about 30 minutes after takeoff. Southwest writing in a statement, initial reports indicate there were no injuries among the 99 passengers and 5 crew members on board, adding it is cooperating with an NTSB investigation. And our flight expert, Steve Ganyard, saying that these kinds of incidents are extremely rare. Still, it makes you think to pay more attention to that safety briefing when you get on the plane, listening to those flight attendants. We know that most of the 99 passengers and 5 crew members so thankful to those pilots for keeping them alive.
So if this engine has never actually failed, why would they create the problem reaction solution for these engine inspections? Well, because there are 14,000 of these engines in service. And they said that it would take 4 hours per engine to inspect. That's 56,000 man-hours of billable labor. So it looks like the manufacturer of the engine has been pushing for these inspections. So this just could all come down to money, because there are 14,000 of these engines currently in service. And that comes down to an awful lot of time and money to inspect. And they're falsely claiming that the engine exploded. Clearly, there's just one fan blade, the number 13 fan blade, that's missing. And according to that pilot, that 737 pilot, that fan blade would have been sucked out the back of the engine. And I think metal fatigue is a bigger problem on the structural parts of the plane, on the airframe, and like on the tail. So these engines are safe. These engines are safe. And even if they did lose one, they still have a second engine that they can take off, fly, and land with. So it looks like this is just a fake problem because they have a solution they want to bring in. I would think that they'd want to do inspections for metal fatigue on other components, not the engines. I mean, the fan blades aren't structural parts of the plane. You'd think they'd want to do it on structural pieces of the plane as opposed to the fan blades. But, you know, what do I know? I'm not in the airline industry and I'm not a pilot, so I'm not qualified to say that. But it certainly is fishy, and it certainly does look like this 2016 engine failure also may have been perhaps fabricated as well. But who knows? I mean, the manufacturer has been pushing for these inspections, and Southwest has been resisting, and the FAA have been dragging their feet. So there's a lot of opportunity and motive here to fabricate something like this. But the fact that this is initially coming from the manufacturer of the engine raises some red flags. And I think the reason these passengers don't have the mask over their mouth and nose is because there's no actual oxygen coming out of the mask. Like I said, I think they staged this on 2 planes, one in the air with the passengers, and one on the ground with the window knocked out. And the pilot can drop these masks from the cockpit. He can drop them to the passengers without turning the oxygen on. And there would be no reason to turn the oxygen on if there was no depressurization. So if they had the masks over their mouth and noses, they wouldn't be able to breathe because there's oxygen in the cabin and none through the masks.